So we all know about city-going pods. They're the future, and they're going to help people out in North America and the world. But that micro category is starting to grow because sedans and hatchbacks just aren't in. CUVs and SUVs are in, and they're getting smaller to the point that they are almost a pod. Micro CUVs is a new market, and it's really just starting to dawn on us because not a lot of people thought that we can make CUVs that small and people would be willing to buy them. But here they are, and they're upon us. Welcome to the world of micro CUVs. AutoLooks.net Autopod, streaming day or night, coming right at you, right here, right now. Welcome back to the AutoLooks podcast. I am your host, as always, the doctor to the automotive industry, Mr. Everett J, coming to you from our main website, AutoLooks.net. If you haven't been there, check it out and check out all that we have to give you within the automotive industry. Some great stuff there, some great reads, great looks, great views, and great listens, all on AutoLooks.net. And we'd like to pay a special thanks to Podbean.com for getting this podcast out into the world on all major streaming services around the globe so that you, the listener, can find us easily on Podbean.com. So like I said in the intro, there is a new market within the CUV market, or CUV segment, which is starting to take off now. This is not a market a lot of people thought of, but with today, a lot of newcomers to vehicles, just considering getting something to get you from point A to point B, you don't have to care about tons of luggage or anything else because you live in the city. So why do you need something super huge? We get it, there's subcompacts out there, but subcompacts are also smaller than your standardized compact, but in yet a little bit bigger than just a mobile vehicle. We're talking about micro CUVs. Yes, there are now micro CUVs out in the CUV marketplace. Kia has one, Hyundai has one, Mahindra, Ford, Volkswagen, Fiat, Toyota, they all have tiny little versions of their vehicles. But why is that? Why would Volkswagen create another CUV? They hit every major market. And then all of a sudden, bam, like lightning, they deliver us the T-Cross. The T-Cross. Similar to that as Chevrolet in the Trax. Trax, you really can't specify as a subcompact vehicle because it's just so damn small. It's essentially made for just people in it. Same with the T-Cross. Ford rejuvenated the Puma name for the most bottom-end CUV they can have. It still looks fairly sized. It's about the size of a Fiesta, but the EcoSport, one step up from that, is still more of a CUV. The Puma seems to come off as a hatch, but really, it's not that big. And it still falls in the CUV marketplace. So why would you make two subcompacts? And you start looking into both of the statures of them and you'd find out. It's a micro. They're small, little city-going vehicles, similar to that of when Swatch Watches and Mercedes teamed up to build the Smart. Hell, Smart has a new #1 CUV coming to the micro CUV marketplace. They want inner city vehicles. It's a pod with a little bit more luggage space in it. This is something that some people might want living in a big city. They may not want a huge vehicle because all they ever do is, occasionally they'll go out with their friends on a weekend out to the countryside for a picnic or a hike or whatever. And then besides that, you're going back and forth to work, or if you're taking public transit to work, this thing doesn't get used a whole heck of a lot. And if it's just you going somewhere, it's for you to, go home and see your parents wherever they are, or friends or family members who live way out of town. You got to take a trip there. Why do you need a huge vehicle? Why do you need to drive this behemoth Suburban when it's just you? You're more friendly to the environment in your micro CUV because you really don't bring a whole heck of a lot. You're not the person that goes on a long journey in your vehicle. So you don't bring, your tents, sleeping bags, stoves, and then all of your clothes and food with you. You're the type of person that if you're doing a weekend, you're doing a weekend at like a lodge or, an Airbnb. You're going somewhere that has stuff. You and your friends just want to go there and you don't want to have a big slice. These are energy conscious people. They're sensitive to the environment around them, but they also want to look good. Not every micro CV is a great looking thing. Hell, look at the Hyundai Venue. It was small. It was boring. It was bland. And seriously, one step down from a Kona is the Venue. And the Venue is kind of boring. It's not really that great of a vehicle. And then comes the Casper. Oh my God, this thing actually has a fully integrated B-pillar. It has a new image. It's small. It's funky. And it's something that if you live in a city, you'd probably be inclined to buy. It's a tiny little vehicle, a micro vehicle. It's there because you need to be mobile. You get markets like India, and India is still one of those markets that a lot of major automakers are having trouble with. But micro CUVs and even subcompact CUVs are a big part of their marketplace. Why is that? Why is it all the small stuff? Well, when you got over 1 billion people in a country the size of India with cities in the millions, if you want to own a vehicle, do you really think you want to drive around in a big vehicle? Are you going out and buying a Jeep Grand Wagoneer or the Jeep Commander to go drive around in? Or do you just need something like a Fiat Pulse or a Tata Punch or a Kia Sonet? Small, little things to get in and around the entire city. They're not big. They're big inside because these vehicles are made to maximize interior space. And they want to maximize that interior space because they know you're going to bring, 3 friends with you. And if you really want to, you'll try and squeeze in that 5th person. But India is also a market that hasn't met the same living requirements as developed countries around the world. When you go to India, there is still the poorest of the poor, and then there's the richest of the rich. Sure, in America, we have people on the streets, which you consider the poorest of poor, but they don't have massive communities of people like this. And when those people and their tiny little businesses start moving slightly upwards, they want to get a vehicle. Well, a micro CUV is priced just right for them. And living in a country like that, where not everywhere has great roads, you can buy a vehicle like this and not have to worry about big potholes, big rocks, or dirt trails. You have a CUV. You have that off-road ability that makes it better than driving a sedan. Kind of like how in Africa, Mobius Motors came out because they were tired of seeing people, especially cabs, driving around in on Hyundai Elantra, Toyota Corolla, and getting stuck on back roads because some of the countries in Africa, they don't really have roads. It's just a path that's driven on. Similar to that, what the Model T did, but the Model T did it in the right way because the Model T was essentially the first active lifestyle vehicle. It met every qualification you needed to go to every single place that you wanted. CUVs somewhat hit that stance of the marketplace. And in a country like India or in many African countries, a micro CUV would be better. Sure, there's micro cars, but like we said, small cars are starting to diminish. EVs are entering the pod ring. The pod ring is essentially almost like a micro. But inner city pods like that are developed for cities, not out in the country. When you have people that move into the righteous mind that they can purchase a vehicle, they want something to do everything. So they get a CUV. And because they can't afford a lot, they get something within their price range. And that usually comes out in the micro category. Funny thing is, there's not a lot of economy car companies that actually build cars in the micro category. They still build sedans, highly outdated sedans and mini trucks, but no CUV. So something like the Toyota Cross, and now having a hybrid option, would sit in that micro CUV marketplace. It's smaller than a CHR, so it falls into that. It falls into the micro market. But this thing looks cool. It looks fun. Hell, it looks like something I would drive to work and back every day. Because it's just me. And I can fit my kids into it if we got to go into town, but I can't buy a lot of big things. So micros are built for a growing economy or a growing driveway. Whereas India and into African countries and even some in South America, micro CUVs will get them out of those boring little micro sedans that get stuck in back roads and leave you high and dry. They're going to get you through and they're going to make it easier. And even in some European countries, these micro CUVs are big because city space is getting cramped. And these people still want to go to the countryside on weekends, and they don't want to do it in a hatchback. The days of hatchbacks and wagons is dying out. Sedans are still there, but people who buy sedans are usually people that just want something to get around, and they're not the people that travel out into the wilderness. They don't go off the beaten path. People in growing countries need that vehicle that can go off the beaten path. They need to go into the back roads. They need to go into nature because they live in nature. They don't live in this metropolis. Whereas people in Mumbai, India, may be buying things like this because they got massive speed bumps on some of the roads. And there's always traffic jams. You're crammed in there. So you have something smaller, it's easier to get around. It's more nimble, more capable. You don't have to worry about it as much. And when your parking space for your house is essentially just your yard and is big enough to fit only a micro car in, because if you get anything bigger, you're going to have to pay to put it somewhere else. You can get these tiny little cars for the inner city you could fit into your driveway. So it makes more sense. In a growing population like India, India, where their market is slowly moving to more middle-class people who are able to afford these micro vehicles, or even the lower-class people who just want to get into the vehicle market. These vehicles are helping them out, and they're helping them out in a better way than they thought. The Puma was a big name at one point. It was a big name for a micro car in the European marketplace. So Ford resurrected it as a micro CUV. Sure, it gained 2 doors and ground clearance, but it's still a Puma, and the thing's so tiny and easy to get around. If you live in London, you can easily get around because this thing is not huge. And the size of its engine is how you get paid for your insurance. It's tiny, but it still has enough power to get you where you're going. So micro CUVs are growing because there are growing markets that require them. But why would some of these vehicles come to the shores of North America? Why would they sell a Venue in North America? They don't sell the T-Cross here. They don't sell the Yaris Cross. The Hyundai Venue is sold in North America. Why would they sell that small little micro? They're a big enough company to enter every single market, and they see the micro market as happening because there are people in the city where as long as one of your friends has a vehicle, or even you yourself have a vehicle, that's it. You just need something to go out and about around it. Haven't you ever seen the commercials for the Chevy Trax? It's people going to have fun, to have parties. They're going out in the town, but it's in a downtown core with skyscrapers. It's not in the middle of the bush. And with the CUV craze being as big as it is, people aren't going to want to buy those micro cars. They want a micro CUV because they want to do what everyone else does. And then it comes down to the environmental factor. People look at this as a gas-conscious investment. They can move around and do everything with ease. And they don't have to harm the environment as bad. We know electric cars are on their way, but still, when you live in a massive city, the mentality of a lot of people is to use up the least amount of space while on the road. By having a micro CUV, it's so much easier to do that. So much easier to get around, so more nimble than things. And trust me, little cars like that are a lot more nimble than your big sedans. I don't care what you say. They're small. They make things easy. But then again, why is it that when Smart came to North America, they came to Canada after they tried the US? Canada doesn't have that many big major cities. Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. And it's getting there, but not yet there, Calgary. So it's 3 major cities that have over 2 million people. In Toronto, well, that whole Golden Horseshoe area are millions of people. 6.5 million people. Hell, probably bigger than that by now, but small little cars like the Smart car did well. You see Venues when you go down south. When I go see my in-laws in Hamilton, I see Hyundai Venues going around. And I see them in the parking lots and in the driveways of people in their own neighborhood. Like they live in an actual neighborhood that has yards. Older houses with nice yards. They're close to downtown, but their neighbor has an Electra Smart car and a Lotus Evora. They have their fun car and they have their practical car for going around town. And so many people around there, you see these tiny little micro cars. You see micros, subcompacts. There's not a ton of RAV4s around because even people in big cities, even in our nation, where we're like just under 40 million people spread across the second largest landmass in the world, we are more inviting for the small cars. Well, that could also be because our gas costs more than it does in the States quite often. But we care. Hell, even in my city, where I live, you don't need a small microcar like this. Hell, I shy away from it because there's so much room and so much ease of movement in my city. We essentially have a ring nearly around the entire city. So I can go from here to New Sudbury, or here to South End, like all easy on ring roads. It's nice, it's comfortable, it's cool. So why would I need a micro vehicle? Myself, I might get a Venue if I was going back and forth to work. So my mentality is, I just want to save gas and go back and forth to work with it. But if I want to do that, these things really aren't the best in the winter. I could just use, have my truck for the winter. And in the summer, I can get a bike. Not a bicycle, like an actual bike. Probably get myself a street bike, because I like, but it's a little cheaper on gas. So why would I get one of those? Oh yeah, I can get soaked driving home. But who cares? I have a vehicle at home when I go out. These micro vehicles act as the extra vehicle. Like I said, the 3-car driveway had disappeared. Hell, we're moving to a 1-car driveway in most major areas in North America. My in-laws are part of that. They've only ever had 1 vehicle, but they were within walking distance of so much. So why do you need more than 1? I am one of those weird people who have 4. At one point, I actually had, no, it was 4. I did have a job where I had a company vehicle where if I was working that job now, I would have 5 vehicles in my driveway. 5! Why do I need all those vehicles? Well, there's one for work. There's the fun one. There's the bush one. There's my wife's work car. And then there's a family vehicle. Sort of like hit every single portion of it. But in today's world, with a lot of people starting to work at home, there might not be a need for two big vehicles. You can have one family vehicle and one micro. Why do you need to waste that much gas going around town all the time? And then if you're just taking a quick run out to camp, as you and your spouse for the weekend, why do you need a huge vehicle to go out there? This thing's got ground clearance. We don't have to worry when we're going down the back roads. I can't go down those back roads in my lowered car. One, because the tires will put me in the ditch, and two, because those rocks will scrape up my car. But something like a Casper, a Venue, a Sonnet, a Yaris Cross, I would look into. My wife drives a subcompact Crosstrek, so it's on the lines of subcompact, not yet in a micro category, but it's cheaper on gas, and we've had it for so long. It's a Crosstrek, so essentially it's almost a CUV. The only difference is I can actually lock my diff. That's a pretty cool thing. So it's small, it's sturdy, it saves gas, and it goes. Why do I need a van or a big SUV for my wife when she has her little car? And with that mentality changing around the world, the micro market and the subcompact market are growing. I've never seen so many new cars within these markets. Between 2019 and 2022, I saw 13 new models enter the micro category in a span of 3 years. 3 years, 13 cars. Hell, the coupe and convertible market hasn't even had 13 cars in it in the past 3 years. So why is it blowing up? I told you, a growing lower class, areas with poorer road conditions, and more environmentally conscious people. The smaller markets are gaining grounds. May make fun of people driving little micro cars and little micro CUVs, but guess what? A micro CUV can do the same thing as a compact. It can go the same places as a compact, and it uses less gas than a compact. So, in the end, do we need this market? Yes. For the time being, and the fact that people are getting into CUVs like crazy, we need this little market. We need it to help people help the world and help themselves. Until developing nations get a proper middle class, which is big enough to start moving up in the world of automobiles, these microcars are going to be the best thing to get them off the streets. Get them out of walking, because eventually you want to explore the world. And if you don't, well, you don't ride on my wavelength, because I like to explore. So, in the end, we need this market. So if you like this podcast, please like, share, or comment on any of the social feeds that you know of about this podcast. Share it with your friends, family, co-workers, acquaintances, some guy on the street. I don't really care. Share it with people and tell them about the new micros. It might help somebody out. It might prove to somebody that, hey, I can actually get a car now that does what I want to do. I want to go into the back roads. Tell them about this market. Show them some of the cars, because micro CUVs may help someone out that you know of. And after that, stop by the AutoLooks.net website for all your automotive needs. Help pages, corporate websites, automotive design ratings. Hell, we even have a page dedicated to you rating vehicles on your own. Podcast, tidbit show, music videos, and my own children's books to help your little one gain information about the automotive world we all love. And thanks again out to Podbeam for all the streaming services from iTunes to Spotify. We are there. And you can find the AutoLooks.net podcast on any major streaming service. So for myself, the whole AutoLooks team here, strap yourself in for this one tiny little ride in the micro CUV market.